It's Edzilla from Era Games, joining us once again from the lovely country of London to talk Kaiju and Tokusatsu. I was hoping to have a special guest, but he hasn't responded yet. So right now it's just Ed and me, and we're going to talk Era Kaiju, because that is the latest project from the brilliant mind of Ed. Thanks as always for joining us, Ed. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. Apologies to anyone listening if I'm a bit throaty or weird voiced. I've just got a bit of a cold. I'm fine.
Good. We're glad. Cold or radiation?
Probably a cold. Yeah.
So, my very first question, obviously with Kaiju, since it's really an obscure genre, and you apparently are a baby to the Tokusatsu genre.
I am, in fact.
Kaiju for a few years, which I find unusual. So, I mean, did you just never get exposed to it, considering, science fiction, it was born in your neck of the wood, and you do have a rich history. I mean, you've got Doctor Who, of course, and Gear Craig, Steampunk, right. Gary Anderson. So guys in rubber suits are not strangers to you. So how is it that you...
Indeed.
Are so new to the Kaiju?
So, I was aware of the Godzilla movie, the Hollywood Godzilla movie in the late 90s, the Matthew Broderick one, with Zilla. And I remember watching that and thinking, oh, it's a giant lizard. Okay, that's fine, cool, okay. And I caught a couple of episodes back then of the animated series they did at the same time. But I never really sort of watched any Godzilla movies. I didn't really think about it. And then I watched the legendary Godzilla movie. I quite enjoyed that one. And then a friend of mine started explaining the plots to Godzilla movies. And the minute that he started describing, a giant cyborg from space with a chainsaw in his chest, I'm like, wait, what? And a buzzsaw in his chest. I'm very sorry.
Yes, buzzsaw in his chest. Yes, he is.
His chainsaw hands. At least later on in the movie, he then showed us.
Yes.
I'm not sure I can't remember the name of that particular movie. I never can bring that one up. It's the one that was around the millennium when all of the Kaiju were in it and the aliens turned up to take over the world. And they had to free
Godzilla SOS, destroy all monsters.
It is called Destroy All Monsters. Okay. For some reason, I thought it wasn't called Destroy All Monsters. I thought that was another thing. Anyway, I thought there was another one called Destroy All Monsters. But yes, he shows me this movie and I'm just kind of like, this is so crazy. You can't not love it. It's just not allowed to not love this. It's so insane and silly. And along comes Gigan and he's beaten, and then he comes back with chainsaw arms, and then along comes King Ghidorah, and by that time I've seen King of the Monsters as well, so I know who King Ghidorah is, more or less. I realize it's not perfect, but broadly I know who he is, and I know who Rodan is, and so on. And I just think to myself, wow, I mean, it would be so cool to have a role-playing game where you play as a kaiju, because I think most people don't do that.
There might be one.
Fair enough. I looked around and I wasn't able to find one.
I mean, there's plenty of mecha versus kaiju.
Oh, yeah.
And mecha, but just kaiju as the main characters, I'm not sure.
So I sort of thought to myself, oh, yeah, you know what? Let's do this. And then I thought, right, but sort of the whole deal with kaiju is really like humanity and the pain and damage that the kaiju inflict on them.
Yes.
Right. And Godzilla -1 obviously coming out very recently and really embodying that sort of PTSD from World War II. It was a fascinating movie. I thought to myself, right, okay, why don't we make the kaiju that you play as a bit smaller and weaker than Godzilla. So rather than being immune to the conventional weapons, you can be hurt over a period of time by them. And that then led me onwards to, okay, well, I want you to play as a group. And I built the confidence mechanic, which I went on YouTube yesterday to talk about, and I won't bore you with unless you want me to. Happy to talk about it. But I invented the confidence mechanic. So then humanity will show up and attack you, and because you're vulnerable to humanity, you've sort of got this need to keep them on board, or you're going to start getting gunned down by planes and tanks. And from your perspective as a kaiju, they're never ending. They're never going to stop coming for you. So yeah, I came up with a bunch of fun ideas and thought, right, well, there's Era Kaiju. That sounds really good.
So how does Era Kaiju work as an RPG? Because there's lots of, there's King of Tokyo and Monster Apocalypse that have both done the genre as board games or
I do love King of Tokyo, actually. It's an all-time favorite for my family when we get together.
Mine too. That and Wretched and the other one. But yeah, how do you do a group of kaiju on an adventure?
Because it's more likely that something encroaches into your territory. And I figure as a group of betas, you sort of work together to protect a shared territory. And the last playtest I ran, for example, one lived in the desert and one lived in the mountains and one lived in the lake nearby and one lived literally smack dab in the middle of the city, in the park, and was loved by all the humans and everything. They come along and pet it because it was furry. And then basically what I had was this meteor came down, and it had an alpha kaiju in it. Think King Ghidorah from the Destroy All Monsters movie we were just talking about. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched that movie. Sorry.
I think yeah.
These the mountain one immediately started leaping down. He was sort of like a giant yeti, sort of a mammalian one with grasping hands.
Mm-hmm.
As his ability, and he starts leaping down the mountains and running and bellowing. And the one in the desert between the mountains and the city sort of hears him bellowing and joins them. And the one in the city gets up and then falls over and knocks over a building and causes all the humans to start being a bit more suspicious about whether they're really good for humanity in this area. And in the meantime, the one in the desert, on the other side, no, it wasn't desert, it was a plain. It was the plains. On the other side, where this meteor had landed, is sort of investigating this meteor, and it's got cracks in it. They start sort of prizing it open and so on. Obviously, that's highly inadvisable. So hijinks ensued. But the Friend of Humanity one took so long to get out of the city and kept fumbling. So by that time, tanks and planes are coming at them, and they're sat there trying to fight this kaiju. This alpha kaiju that's come from space and has all these abilities at the same time as the humans are attacking them. So it just made this really awesome sort of, oh yeah, we're smaller kaiju, like the Mutos from the first legendary Godzilla movie. It was so much fun. It was just silly and just a lot of fun.
Cool. Will there be like miniature rules for?
So no, I run it pretty much like I would any other role-playing game. So you can run around, you can do your thing, and humanity, when they're attacking you, they literally just remove one of your health per turn. As an Era D10, you might have, I don't know, somewhere between 7 and, in theory, I suppose you could have 13, 14 health. You're not going to have a lot more than that, certainly. That, over time, imagine 8 rounds of combat. It's not that unrealistic that they could kill you.
Yeah.
And in Era Kaiju, it's quite hard to heal up as well, because you basically have to rest. You aren't going to walk up and heal each other.
Yeah,
although there is a healing ability. You can have a healer who goes around healing you, if that's what you want to have. I can't let Mothra be betrayed like this, can I? Not after all the time she's done so much good.
Yes, she is the one good.
So yeah. it really is. It just runs like a normal role-playing game. The only thing is that because of who you are as a kaiju, you're not likely to go on an adventure. Although
you're not gonna
there'd be nothing to stop you doing a campaign where you're trying to find your territory in the first place.
Okay.
That would be a lot of fun, actually. I haven't done it yet, but now I'm talking about it. Now I want to go and run that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, obviously it doesn't work as a normal. It's like, hey, let's go in the dungeon or let's rob a bank, because you're not really good guys or bad guys. You're forces of nature. So how does that work out? And obviously the humanity's response is the big question. I only have the pocket version, so I don't know if you go into this more, and like what happens when you step on a building, what happens when you crunch through towns. Is there, because it looks like there's just 2 pages of that on mine.
Yeah. Humanity, it's designed as a guideline for the GM. I don't want to be really super specific here. I want the GM to have a guide, understand what it is, what kind of thing you might do. If they knock over a building, I mean, it's in that table you just had on the page a moment ago. I don't want to insist that this is exactly how this works. It feels to me like humanity is very much at the GM's discretion. So it's about how humanity views you as kaiju. And if you kill an alpha kaiju in battle, right, you're going to gain faith from humanity in a big way. If you force it away, you're going to be seen as like a protector of humanity. But at the same time, if you lose control, you go wild and you start smashing up buildings, you're going to have a serious penalty.
Yes.
I want this to be a very swingy stat. So, you could easily be at 0 and 50 in the same 3-hour session, 4-hour session. You could easily be at both 0 and 50 within that same session. The thing is that what you've got to be doing is working hard on your humanity and bearing in mind your humanity's confidence in you, because otherwise they will attack you and they will destroy you.
Yes, cool. Yeah, that's obviously, that's like the first thing I was thinking is, how smart are the humans? How aware are the humans? How do they react to big stompy rope?
Well, that's one of the other fun things, because to the kaiju, humans are just this endless supply of pain.
Yes.
Right? That's all they are.
Little kids, we always protect the little kids, but the rest of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they drive the tanks up and open fire, and you can stomp as many tanks as you like, but more tanks drive up, and then planes fly over and hurt your ears, and then fire rockets at you. And
weird how they all look the same, but yep.
Yeah, exactly. They just seem to be infinite.
And then the lightning tank, and
yeah, right.
And then they build a giant robot.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things I was asked about that I've decided I'm not going to include in the base version of Era Kaiju, not out of the question as an expansion or a stretch.
Oh yeah, we're getting to that one.
Is the mecha or the Pacific Rim style robots or even just Godzilla or that sort of thing. Things,
or even just the more weird looking military hardware, because they always had like the laser tank.
Oh yeah, that is another definite possibility. The other thing I like about confidence, while we're on the subject, I like the idea that if you have a high confidence, humanity will believe that you're going to save them from this threat, so they won't fire at the threat, right? The Godzilla animated covered that one a bunch of times, right? It was, don't fire at Godzilla, he's going to win. And it took some real convincing a lot of the time. And I thought that was a really fun idea.
Yes.
To have this, depending on your level of confidence, they might not be firing at you, but if they hit you, they don't care.
Yeah, just the NPC who still sees you as a threat no matter how many times.
Right, there'll always be that one, and although, they might not fire at you directly, if you're in the way, then you get hit, and it's just sort of your fault for being in the way. You shouldn't have got in the way of the brand new lightning tank that's definitely going to win.
Yes. So the GM plays humanity.
Flying submarine with a drill bit on the front.
Yes, the flying submarine with a drill bit. Yes.
And laser cannons.
Yes. A leftover from Super Sentai.
Crazy.
So what can we expect in the expanded that I don't have? And I mean, is there anything on like the mentality of kaiju? How do you convince players to, get out of that EP and stuff mindset and more into the you're a force of nature?
So the fact is that you don't have an intelligence stat, right? You're not able to analyze things. You simply won't be able to, because there's no way to roll it, and deliberately so.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to that. You literally don't have an intelligence. You react mostly by instinct. And yeah, as a GM, occasionally you have to go, hey, you know what? I think you're reasoning a bit too strongly for a kaiju there. Right? My guy comes up to the thing and someone else goes, no, don't open it. And I'm like, well, A, you're too far away. B, okay, maybe you do have experience of meteors falling from the sky. That seems to happen quite a lot in kaiju movies. So maybe you have experience of that. But you're not going to be able to easily communicate that, are you? So if you can't do it with a sign language, you probably can't do it.
Cool. So there's I guess what the other one would be, the ridiculousness level. Because some kaiju are utterly ridiculous, but others, like especially with -1, you get much more serious. Do you have any guides on that, or where would you go with that?
I want the group to come up with their own method of doing it, because you're right, some of them are just insane.
Yes.
The fairy girls, assuming you're talking about the Mothra priestesses.
Yes, the girls from Monster Island. Yes.
I assumed so. Yeah, I mean, they probably exist, but they'd likely be NPCs. I've actually had a conversation recently about how you could use perhaps Era liars or something similar to be the team on the ground, the humans, if you like, who are no, they're important. Don't kill them off. They're biologically important to the planet. And perhaps use sort of the persuasion side of things rather than the brute force of a kaiju, I suppose.
So an advanced game, you might have a player doing both a kaiju and its humanoid counterpart.
That's absolutely a possibility that I had. That's exactly the sort of thing I was thinking of. Where you've got your kaiju going on, and you've got your human on the ground who's again your Matthew Broderick character, let's say from the animated, who's Mama.
Yeah. Yeah, the psychic chick or whatever, or Eleven's character from Godzilla, or
many options, right?
The kids who seem to be able to control Gamera.
Yes.
So you've dipped your toes. So here comes the other big question. You've dipped your toes into kaiju. What about the rest of Tokusatsu? Are we gonna see Era Mecha? Are we gonna see Era Sentai? Are we gonna see Era Ultraman?
Actually, I've had someone
because
ask me for Era Sentai for years.
It wasn't me.
Well, I don't think it was you. No. There's someone who's been asking me about that for years and years now. I even wrote him an Era the Empowered character, who was basically the Masked Rider, who was one of my favorites when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I'm sort of mulling it. I'm working on it slowly.
Good.
I'm not quite there yet.
Well, I'm glad to help you out with that one. If you ever want some American aid, but yeah. Because I mean, obviously the question goes, the second you introduce giant robots, and like Ultraman, you could easily do with it as it is, because Ultraman is just a humanoid kaiju.
Yeah.
Will you be adding more kaiju and more types, and will you be doing the American kaiju as well?
I'm strongly considering it. I really need to see how this goes as a project. But the bestiary is sort of my first steps towards adding something new and seeing how it goes. So I've announced a couple of stretch goals for the project already. And one of those. Sorry.
I backed it, of course.
Thank you very much. And one of those is actually a bestiary of creatures. And I want to begin going a little more weird. I sent the artist who did all the beautiful artwork in Era Kaiju. I want to talk about that for a minute. In a minute, I'd love to talk about the artwork.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
But I sent the artist this list, and he went, "Wait, really? Really? That's what you want? Are you
this
sure?
art? Is that the individual you're talking about? Yeah,
this is it. His name is Leonardo Giordano. And what we did is we had a long conversation about this and how we were going to do it. And what we decided is we wanted to look a little bit like it was inked onto the page by a person who was drawing these kaiju as he was seeing them.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And so that's why we have these black and white ones, particularly the ones that aren't full page images. Yeah, I really like how those have come out.
Someone's notebook kind of thing.
Exactly. And the obviously the colored images are also really nice to look at.
Does this guy have a link we can share? Maybe in the post edit?
Yeah, I'll be happy to find a link for you and send it to there. Find a link for you and send it.
So he's got like an online.
I'm sure he has an online portfolio. I'm sure I've got the link somewhere. Yeah, definitely.
So what's in the expanded that isn't in the pocket now? The thing I loved in the last one we talked about, Old West, was the build your own weapon.
Yeah,
that's something I hadn't seen anybody really do in a long time, and I really love that. Is that going to carry over into future projects? Does that show up in this one?
It doesn't show up in this one, no. This one, really what I was doing that was new in this one is the Era D10 Lite rule set. It's sort of its first outing. And if you go right to the end of the book, or the second last page, it's the inside back cover. We've got a brand new design for a character sheet.
Yes, much simpler.
It's a lot simpler. It's only got the 6 stats. Well, let's face it, Kaiju don't have learned abilities.
Well, right? Not a lot.
They don't have training. They might learn how to use their powers.
From their mistakes, but yeah. It's not like you're going to see Godzilla picking a lock.
Yeah, I don't see him picking a lock. That was exactly what I was about to say. So instead, I've really just focused on the attributes. And with any role, you just choose 2 of those attributes. Yeah. And this is actually the first run of the Era D10 Lite rule set. I'm going to be doing this a little bit more soon for my upcoming action hero game, Era Friction.
Cool.
Which is a comedy, very, very much a comedy side of the action genre. And this was sort of the first run for it. This one still contains some of the Era D10 staples like defense, which I don't really intend to be an Era D10 Lite for a variety of reasons. I want to simplify it a bit. But this is sort of it's most of the way to where I want the Lite rule set to look like, but a little bit more complicated. Because it's not technically on the Lite rule set, it's more, well, Kaiju just don't have any skills.
Yes.
Whereas, obviously in an action movie, in theory, they could have skills. I just want to make the rule set a bit simpler, a bit lighter, a bit faster, easier to run, that sort of thing.
So we're looking at the beginnings of sort of a Era multiverse universe, Era rifts kind of thing. Do you think you'd ever do like a guidebook in the future to see how each one is connected? Era Super versus Era Kaiju. How the Old West of Era fed into making the mutants. Era Zone 2020. Oh, sorry. Cool.
I wrote a book. It doesn't exactly say how everything links, but it does talk about how you would play games in a combination. Because at this point, it wasn't quite so many, but now it's 15 Era games that I've published.
Look at the perfect. Yeah. I'm lucky if I get one out.
Once you get started, it's easier.
Nah, yeah. It's all uphill for me.
But I actually did write the Era Zone number 6 for exactly that reason, because I thought, right, I want people to think I want to play zombie apocalypse, but with sci-fi technology. Okay, how do you combine those rules? What do you take from which book? From Era the Consortium Warriors Survival? How do you combine them? What do you take and what do you leave out from each side? And one of the things that I really like about Era D10 and the way that it sort of turned out over the years, I'm somewhat pensive. I'm coming up to the 10th anniversary of Era the Consortium, which was my first game. And I guess that means I've done 1.5 games a year.
Congratulations.
Oh, neat. But I think to myself, okay, well, something like GURPS obviously does a huge number of genres, and it's definitely got its pros and cons. Era D10 doesn't try to balance sci-fi and fantasy in the same way. Instead, what we do is say, right, well, here's a sci-fi game and here's a fantasy game. And that means that if you take the sci-fi rules with the fantasy weapons and the way they're statted, you have a very different experience to if you take the fantasy rules and the sci-fi weapons the way that they're statted. And that's wonderful. It gives you that many more combinations of things to choose from. Oh, I like the fact that you can die really easily in Era Survival. Okay, cool. I like the fact that in Era the Consortium, you get to explore the universe. Okay, cool. Right. Drop the Era Survival rules in Era the Consortium, limit the amounts of ammunition you have, make everything more lethal, remove shields, go. It's a different game that you've just put together from the building blocks that I've provided. And while it was mostly intentional, I didn't really think about it when I first started 10 years ago. I didn't really think, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing. It was more that as I developed new games, I thought, no, I'm not going to use the same stats for weapons. It doesn't make sense. Instead, I'm going to make the stats for weapons that fit this game.
Cool. So what's next? I mean, obviously now you're going to get a lot of questions about the future of Kaiju. We want to see, lightning tanks and giant robots and Era Tokusatsu, but now you're doing common next, huh?
So what's next? Era Kaiju is running on Kickstarter for a good 3 more weeks. I'm going to be coming out with bits and pieces every day.
Cool.
I love giving little bits of insight, and some of them will be boring or obvious or not too interesting to some people, and some of them will be interesting.
No, right? I'm very interested, especially, I want to see how the weapon system evolves, especially, can I use the weapon system to build a lightning tank, or, if you do mecha giant robots, because I really like the Old West weapon system. That was unique.
Yeah, I won't lie. The Old West weapon system, I've been toying with an idea for an expansion to Era the Consortium for a long time that I refer to as RTFM, and I don't know if you know what RTFM stands for.
No, I'm an idiot.
it's read the fucking manual.
Okay, raw written. All right, yeah.
And but I might just call it the Armory rather than RTFM. But this has actually been something that's been in my mind for many, many years now, and it's been promised on a number of Kickstarters. And it's reached the point where it's sort of the next thing. Very likely to be in the 10th anniversary Kickstarter, I think. And I am considering, after how much people have enjoyed the Dead West system, I am strongly considering, well, do I want to? Do I? I think I might be interested. So that's a distinct possibility. Okay. Era Kaiju, I don't know where it's going to go exactly. It really depends a lot on the amount of funding we get and the amount of support we get. Obviously, if we bring in lots of money and lots of interest, I would love to do some more. We are fortunate that literally Godzilla has never been more popular.
I was just going to get to my personal connection to Godzilla. But unfortunately, he hasn't responded to my text.
Oh, that's a shame.
Is that what's on screen now? Might know, one of my oldest and dearest friends grew up with this guy, ran a game for me for 15 years, is World's Martial Arts Hall of Fame TJ Storm, who mocapped Godzilla. So I had reached out to him to see if he wanted to jump in. but he's off probably mocapping something.
Something.
Yeah. So if you guys
want
to
that
know
is a shame. I would have loved
played
that.
Godzilla in the last couple of Godzilla movies, it's this very handsome man who refuses to age, and I hate him for it. So yeah, I would also volunteer my shilling of myself if you want to ever do, you know, mecha or Sentai, because that's kind of my ballpark.
Noted.
You know, and I'd love to work with you in the future on a project. You know,
I actually did discuss doing some build off Era Balam involving mecha, transforming mecha, perhaps was what we discussed. It was one of those, you know, when you're at a convention, well, a lot of listeners won't know, but when you're at a convention, you're running a table and you get to the end of the day and you're heading home, you're just talking shit by then. You're not able to put coherent sentences together. You're more like, oh, that's a cool idea. And that was an idea we had. We talked about doing something that's maybe slightly more anime inspired, because it was an anime convention. And one of the things that came up is the possibility that we could do some mecha.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've opened the door. You've done, you know, guy in rubber suit. So the Tokusatsu door has been opened. Sooner or later, you know, you got to do guy in mecha suit, and then, you know.
Well, I suppose I have to do Spider-Man as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, you got to do. Nobody's done Japanese Spider-Man. I don't know if you can do Japanese Spider-Man. I don't know the copy. Who owns the?
Well, I might not be able to do it officially.
Yeah, you could do an unofficial. You could do like You could just be like a writer, you know, who looks like Spider-Man. But yeah, because exactly, you know, Marvel owns part of that. Toei owns another part of that.
That's a mess.
So I don't know who owns the rights to Japanese Spider-Man, because, you know, that was all made because Stan Lee wanted to do stuff with Japan, and that's how you know, he sort of bankrolled the Japanese Spider-Man, but then refused to take any credit for it because, you know, they wanted to open up the Japanese market. And I mean, you know, let's face it, Japanese Spider-Man is awesome.
I've only been exposed to it via the internet. I've never actually watched it.
Oh yeah,
I probably
emissary
should.
from hell, Japanese Spider-Man. Then he opens
but I haven't
up
got that
machine
yet.
gun. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a huge Sentai fan. So yeah. All right, well, Ed. I'm gonna let you go because apparently somebody's doing construction next door.
So
I don't want to have to yell over drilling and hammering and whatever. So, and you, like you said, your throat's hurting. And you know,
well,
I appreciate you reaching out for me. And
I am so sad I missed TJ Storm. That would have been absolutely. I would have adored that.
Next time, I'll try.
Next time, I hope.
When we do,
maybe if you can get hold of him, maybe I'll come back in a week or so. You know, when you're, you know, if you're not busy.
I'm never busy, dude. I sit at home all day writing product from the other company, you know, all my wretched stuff. Though I did just self-publish my first one. Thank you for inspiring me.
Congrats. Well done.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I'll post the link down below once we get done. But yeah, I will let you go, Ed, because I know it's 8:00 there. And there's some kind of big truck. So it
all right.
Like it's going to get really loud.
Thank you for having me as always. I know it's been a little brief. But please, guys, check out Era Kaiju.
Yes, links down below to all the wonder that is Ed, all his projects past.
We just hit the stretch goal.
And
we just hit the first stretch goal. There will be a bestiary, assuming that we fund at this level, which...
Congratulations, Ed! Yay!
But we just hit the 1,500 stretch goal, which means I am going to be doing a short digital-only bestiary booklet with 4 enemy kaiju to play with.
What about live plays? You ever going to do some live plays that we could like link my site to so people could watch you play?
I am working on it. I, in fact, will not be running a live play because I promised it as a reward, so I don't feel like I can until after it's done. But after it's done, definitely.
Yes,
however, I have a brave GM who has volunteered to run a game.
If that happens, please send us the link so we can share it with our Americans.
I absolutely will do that.
All right. Well, congratulations on entering the exciting world of Tokusatsu and hitting your first stretch go. I urge everybody who's out there listening to us to put on your mecha suit and go buy this product because it's
rubber suit, really.
And kaiju is awesome, you know. I mean, American kaiju is usually giant insects, but you know, the rest of the world gets cool kaiju.
Insectoids are a thing in Era Kaiju. Don't you worry.
Yeah, you gotta have the giant ants. Thanks, Ed. Get better, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.